Hi there, welcome to Let's Get Started. If you watched the last episode, or video, you may remember this little guy. And he turned out not too bad. As you can see, we've got a few mistakes, but that's alright. And this is just using paints that come in the box and nothing else. No base coating, no thinning, and that's what it looks like. From the top, and there you go. So what are we going to do today? Well, we're going to take another model, and we're not going to base coat him, but we are going to try thin down paints. Okay, so we're going to try thinning our paints a little bit. And remember, if it turns out not as great as you want, that's alright. The whole point of this is just getting a feel for the hobby. And I'll just natter away to myself as we do this and what have you. So, remember in our box we got one paintbrush, as you can see, still in good condition. We got Magos Purple, which is a contrast. We got our Thunderhawk Blue, which is a layer. Our Armageddon Dust, which is a technical. Our Wraithbone, which is a base. Our Cortex White, which again is a base. And our Nagarath Knight, which is also a base. And just sort of recap on some of the visuals here. So the skin, or what could be described as skin, is our Wraithbone. The carapace along the top is our Nagarath Knight. Thunderhawk Blue on the feet and nails, and some white cortex in the teeth. We also undercoated the Thunderhawk Blue with a bit of white as well. We then put a bit of contrast into here using the Magos Purple, and this is the Armageddon Dust. So let's pick up with this guy. Now you may notice that I have a sheet of baking paper here, or cooking tray paper, whatever you want to call it, baking sheet. And the whole point of this is to put our paints onto it so we can then add some water to thin it down. Okay, and I did remember to get the water this time along with a bit of kitchen roll so we can dry our brushes. So where did we start? Well, last time we started with the Wraithbone. Okay, so we're going to start there again, and we are just going to pop the top. Oh, I've got to give it a shake first. Almost forgot on that one. Give that a little bit of a shake. Going to mix up that paint nice and well, because it does tend to separate, especially if you leave it for a long time. And there we go. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to scoop up some paint, put it on our baking sheet, get a bit more like so, just try and get it all down, and then we're going to dip it into our water here, and we're going to dip that onto the paint. Okay, and what should begin to happen, just a couple of drops, is it will sit on top, and then it will start to thin down just a little bit, and you can see sort of just as I move it here, it kind of pulls back from itself, so that means it's kind of thinned down for us. Okay, and because this is the paint that we're going to start with, let's pick up a bit and see what it does. Now remember folks, the hardest part is just starting, so it doesn't matter where you start, just go for it. Let's start on the leg here. There we go, so nice bit of paint down, bit on the arm here, and we've got some more there. Now, as we begin to paint this, what you may notice will happen is it seems to just sort of puddle a little bit, so I don't know if you can see that, but it's just sort of puddling, and all we want to do is let that puddle and sort of move it around a little bit. Okay, nothing fancy, nothing too out there, just a nice little puddle of paint. Now when you thin down paints, you'll probably have to add in a second or possibly even a third coat, depending on the paint and how thin it is. Now as you can see, this paint seems to be going rather far for our thin down paint, so we're just going to take a bit from there and then we're going to push it all the way around to here. And sort of, you can see it doesn't look too bad, but you know, it's only the first coat, and hopefully this will begin to dry by the time that we are ready to apply the second coat. Now, for those of you who actually want to get into the Warhammer hobby a bit more, there are loads of videos out there on what you need to get started. I say what you need to get started. What would be good to get started? Okay, so if you really do want to get into it, Warhammer specifically, and well, I say Warhammer specifically, you know, a lot of this is transferable to other miniature painting hobbies. I'm just going to load up our brush a little bit more there. Okay, and just spread that on there. There you go. So, like I said, there's quite a few videos out there, and I was watching one the other day, and it was put together very well. It showed prices and, you know, items to use and stuff. And I'll link it in the description below. And I highly recommend you go check it out if it's something that you are interested in getting into. You know, some people join the hobby for building the models, others join it for painting the models, and you know, it's all about what you want, really. There we go. That's looking pretty good, if I do say so myself. Remember, it doesn't have to look perfect, folks. Okay. There's tabletop ready, and then there's competition ready. Now you see a lot of the bigger YouTubers, the people who do this professionally, you know, they're paid to do this. You know, that's their job. Most of us, you know, no disrespect to any of the bigger YouTubers out there who do this, but you know, they have time for this. This is what they have to do to maintain their living, you know, maintain them, you know, their workload. Okay. And most of us don't really have that sort of luxury. You know, we work 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and we just want to have a little thing to ourselves to help us unwind. Okay. Now, I usually like to put on a bit of jazz, bit of like cafe jazz on in the background, just to help me mellow out, sort of forget the world and get involved in the painting side of things. Now, as you can see, this looks pretty decent. If we look at the face a little bit better, so if you remember last time on the other video, it kind of looked a bit clumpy, but now that we've thinned it down, it just seems to be following the sort of visuals of the face itself. So overall, that's not too bad, you know. And we haven't done anything special. We've just had a bit of water, thin it down. We're just giving it a little extra brush over, okay. And we're gonna just pop that on here as well. There you go. So I'm using like the last of whatever's on the brush just to sort of go over. Now you could consider this a form of sort of dry wet brushing if you wanted. And just look at the way that fills in there, nice and straightforward. Okay, we'll get the other side as well, but I'm going to load up the brush just a little bit more, And let's just pop a little bit on his tail here to thin that out. There we go. That's it. That's all it is. All we're doing. Nice and easy. Now I would consult the box art, but I have unfortunately misplaced it. But that's all right. We've got our little standing guy here. So just from this first little coat, let's take a little look-see of the two of them. Don't know how well you can see that. There you go. So thin down, not thin down. And I realise that it's just a little out of focus. So this is one thing I've learnt from the last video, is the focus is very, very important for you guys to see. And there we go. So that's one coat and one coat. So we're going to let this dry just a little bit, and then we'll add a second coat. Now it's pretty quick drying. So while we do that, we're going to move on to the Nagarath Knight. Okay, gonna give that a shake. Give it a nice little shake up. I'm just gonna have a little sip of tea while I'm at it. Being British and all. Okay, and let's rinse off this brush. There we go. There we go, nice dark sort of purpley colour. Very vibrant. And all we're going to do again, same as before, we're just going to scoop it up, put it down. Probably need one this time, given how much we got out of that. And then we're just going to take a little bit of water, add it in. I'm going to bring that in here. Now you can use the brush end, or depending, you can use the flat end, depending on how much water you really want to get on. So say if there's a couple drops on there, one's already sort of fallen off there, and a couple drops is all you really need. Okay, more or less, sort of like a 50 to 70 30, maybe 60 40 ratio, and you're just going to mix that in. And there we go. See how it thins and pulls just away from it. There you go. And that's it. That's a nice thin down paint for me anyway. You know, you need to practice yourself to kind of get a feel for it. And let's bring our guy back here. So we've already got it paint loaded up on the brush, and we are going to just go for it. There we go. That's it. Remember, folks, that first step. Now, people say the first step is always the hardest, but I don't find that to be the case. I think the second step is the hardest, because that first step is you just dipping your toe into it. The second step is momentum, and momentum is always harder than inertia, because you have to not only fight your initial inertia of doing it, but you have to be motivated to maintain what you're doing. Now you can see it's pooling a little bit too much, so this might be just a bit too thin. So all we're going to do is we're going to take a little bit of paint, pop it in, mix it up, and there we go. So it's not pooling as much, but it's still thin down. And we're going to go over that. There you go, that's not too bad. Not too bad at all. On our next model, we'll look at base coating. So a bit of priming, rather. That's the word I should use. Why is it important? Well, primer gives our paint something to stick to, because right now it's just trying to stick to plastic, whereas primer sticks to plastic, or whatever you spray it on really, and then whatever you paint on top of it sticks to the primer, which allows for our colours to come out a lot more. But this is just a little intro to what you can do with just the paints in the box. And I think it's coming out alright, actually. Really is. And, you know, if I was playing on the tabletop, I wouldn't really care, to be honest. You know, when you play, no one's really scrutinising your models, no one's sort of like, oh no, you missed this little detail on it, you can't play. You know, and if you have got people like that, well, let's face it, you don't need those people in your life, okay? Those people are the kind of people who don't want you to play. They just want to show off what they can do, or what they believe they can do. Maybe that's a little lesson you can take away. Find some people who don't care what your painting looks like. And there you go, that's the carapace done. Just make sure I haven't missed any little bits. No, it looks all alright to me. And it's already started to dry, which is great. Okay, so we're going to give this a little rinse. And we're going to dry it off. Okay. Use a bit of kitchen roll or tissue paper to dry your brushes, folks. Don't go licking them, okay? It's not sanitary or healthy, and it's just weird, okay? Now we're going to come back to our Wraithbone white just over here. And the good thing about watering down your paints or thinning them down is that they stay wetter for longer, so you can reuse them to sort of build up layers. Let's just bring up our little guy here. So you see he's kind of shiny, but he's starting to come together. A couple mistakes here, but that's alright, because we can cover those up, or they could just be little features, you know, nothing too fancy. So, another quick sip of tea. That's a good cup of tea. Okay, so we're going to pick up our Wraithbone white. Now there's not a lot left down here, so we might need to top it up with a bit more paint and water, but let's see what we can get away with, eh? And as always, you just go for it. There you go. Now see, it's a little thicker because it's adhering to the paint beneath it. It's creating that second layer. And the good thing about thin down paint is that you can move it around. You can get it into little crevices, you can let it do its thing. So when it dries, it's actually the water that dries out of it. And then it kind of levels itself off. Probably need to do a bit of purple on that one. There you go. And we'll just do this side, just so you can see what it kind of looks like. Okay, now we're not exactly keeping a lot of the detail, but that's alright. Might just be me being a bit heavy-handed. A bit too much paint on the brush. But you know what, that's alright. Just like our first model, we're just gonna let this speak for itself, okay? It doesn't matter if it's fancy or, you know, the quality of what they call the Golden Demon Awards. It's all about you. Sorry, I'm a little off camera there. You, the model, and the brush. Okay, and there we go. So just sort of covering that side up a little bit more. And look at this, so we're bringing a bit more life and colour to it in its own sort of way. Now, this looks great, if I do say so myself. And I'm happy with this. This is great. Now, we'll just grab his face there, and we'll just scoop that on over there. And you can see the detail still remains there, which is great. And that's the beauty of thinned down paint, is you can keep a lot of the detail. You just got to be careful not to oversaturate it with paint. Okay, so let's just take a little look. So we've got one side there. So let's turn them over. So that's one coat. Doesn't look too bad even just for one coat, really. And that's two coats. As you can see, it comes out just a bit more colourful. The detail, oh, I keep knocking the camera, I'm really sorry folks. The detail in itself, so you kind of got one half of the face there, the other half of the face there, so you can see it's just sort of thickened up a little bit. So maybe we need to thin down the paint just a bit more. But that doesn't look too bad, does it? Even the hands, you can sort of see the hands, they've come in pretty good. So let's get the other side done. Now unfortunately we do need a bit more paint and a bit more water. So we're just going to take a bit of paint, pop it down, a bit of paint, pop it down, take some water and just pop it on there. And there we go. Okay. And then we're going to just mix that in so it's all nice and thin. And there you go, see now. See how it's pooling and pulling away a little bit. That might be a bit too thin. Let's take a look. Let's pick up our model and we're going to go for the the side that doesn't have the second coat, and we're just going to stick that on. Let it run down to those crevices. Yeah. Now that does seem a bit too thin, but let's roll with it. Let's see what it looks like, eh? It's a nice little comparison. Yeah, so that does look very, very thin. It's just sort of pooling a little bit as opposed to coating. But let's roll with this. Let's see what it looks like in the end, because I'm sure you're curious, and this is all about making mistakes. Okay, I'm making the mistakes so that you don't have to, and you know what to expect. Hopefully I'm not taking out too much of the fun of the painting side of the hobby. And the good thing about it pooling there is we can just pick it back up and put it over here. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I like that. That is fantastic. Now you do need to be careful a little bit with thinner paints, because if there's a darker colour underneath, that darker colour is going to show up a little bit more. I'll take some more paint. Yeah, that's quite thin. So if we were probably using this consistency for the whole model, we'd probably need 3, maybe 4 coats of this specifically. Get that under there, just a little bit of pooling. Let's see how the face does. So there we go. There you go. See, yeah, we're getting some bubbles in there. So just take it a little bit. I'm just going to pop that over there and then pop that back onto his face, in the neck, get the chest, and just underneath. Now when we look to prime, the good thing with a good primer, if you use like a black or something, you can in fact create shadows. Now, no, we've sort of pulled this a bit too much, so there's a little mistake. Let's fix this mistake. So we're going to rinse off our brush, dry it off, and then we're just going to pick it up. Okay, going to spread it up, pick it up, put it down over here, going to pick it up. So I realise I'm getting a bit focused and pulling the model a bit closer to myself as opposed to the camera. Hopefully you'll forgive me on that one. So there we go, that's that. So there you go. So hopefully we've kind of saved that a little bit. Maybe not, but who cares? There's that side, and then there's that side. Yeah, it's not looking too bad actually. It's not looking too bad. We'll need to wait for it to dry. We'll see how it turns out. So that's it for the wraith bone. Okay, we've got our nice 2 coats. I'm just gonna rinse off the brush. Now you don't have to thin down your paints every time. Okay, if you feel like a thicker layer would work best, then great. Actually, let's get our Cortex white. So you may remember this one. We're just gonna sort of put it on the feet a little bit. And then let's do a little experiment actually. So let's take this thicker white. I'm not going to thin it down, and we are going to put it onto the feet. So we've got a nice sort of thicker coat on the feet. And then what we'll do is we will thin down the Thunderhawk blue, and we will put that on top. Just see how it reacts. Will it react the same as before, or will it react completely differently now? I realise there's probably a lot of people of the newer painting enthusiasms group who are enjoying this, and there's those who are veterans who just happen to stumble across this and are screaming at their screens. But that's alright, it's not for them. It's for you guys who are starting out, so we can make mistakes and learn together. Just sort of get that over there, and get that on there. Okay, just take the tiniest bit, and remember we're going to get this on the top here. Carapace of the gun. Just sort of brighten it up a little bit as well, actually. That's good. That is very, very good. Yeah. Oh, I like that. I do like that a lot. And we're just going to get this side as well. Make sure we get it. Now, that's an interesting point. I don't know if you'll see it very well, but let's see if we can bring it up. You can just about see right here, there's like a little bumpy bit. That is from when we clipped it off the sprue and we didn't tidy it up with a knife. We only used our clippers. And this is where, if you really want to get into it, you probably get like a hobby knife and just sort of scrape that away. A bit of attention to detail beforehand. But, for me, this is all about just having a bit of fun. Now, here's the question, folks. The teeth should be white. So let's actually thin down our white a little bit. Actually, let's probably thin it down. Just see how it goes on. Okay, a little bit of water. There you go. Okay, so just a tiny bit. And there you go. So it's kind of pooling away. That's a bit too thin. Get a bit more paint, mix it in. There you go. So you can see it's just sort of, it's moving and it's pulling. Okay, and then all we're going to do, probably got a bit too much, so I'm just going to take off a lot of the paint. There you go. Yeah, see how much paint was on that brush. And we're just going to go over the teeth. And this is all about just those little details. Now, those little details, they don't really matter too much, if you're not too fussed with them, because they can kind of come out a little bit rubbish, but, maybe there's a different technique we should be using, maybe a bit of dry brushing for the teeth, or when we come, if we base coat it in white, that kind of takes care of it. Okay, so we're going to let that dry, and that's it for the white. Just sort of dry that off. Now, I do realise that my last video was a bit long. I think it's just short of an hour. So I don't know if you like that kind of lengthy video or not, just listening to me natter away to myself as we paint together. Now, one thing I will say to you folks is, if you are going to get into this miniature painting, or just painting or sketching or whatever it is, have a passion project, okay? Now, you don't need to know what it is straight away. Just something that you want to put your time into, because there's nothing worse than putting your time into something that you don't really want to. Like, it just sort of drags out a little bit, and no one likes that, because it ruins your fun. We only get a couple hours to ourselves probably a week, you know, with cooking, looking after the kids, housework, work itself, you know, just whatever it is, you know, commitment to family, that sort of thing. There you go, this looks alright. Just take a little bit off here. So it's still quite thin, so I don't know if you can see all that paint. So what we're going to do is pop that on top of the white. Now, in theory, what should happen is when this dries, that white will help brighten our colour. Should also make it easier to apply. Again, this might be just a smidge too thin. That's always the hardest part about miniature painting, is finding the right balance and consistency, because not all paints are created equally. Some have more pigment, some have more thinner, some have no pigment, some have no thinner. I'm just using the paint that's on the back of my hand to tidy this up a little bit. Save me, you know, just going down onto the baking tray, and you know, it's there, may as well use it. Okay, it's not going to go to waste. And oh, actually, that's, you know, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. You can sort of see. We'll take a look at this in a second once I get the first coat down. Now, remember, folks, have a passion project, something that you want to put time and effort into. Because when you're in one of those slumps, having that little bit of passion, that little bit of thing to look forward to, really goes a long way. Now, you don't have to burn yourself out by constantly, you know, painting it or putting a lot of effort into it. It's just one of those things where you come along and you do maybe one or two little things to tidy it up, you know, little bits at a time. You know, you're chipping away at it. And by the end of it, once it's all said and done, you know, it might take weeks, could take months, or years, depending on the size of your project. When it comes to the end, you can see everything. Now, there will be days where you just cannot believe how little progress you think you've made. But when you look back on it, oh, you'll see the progress, folks. Because remember, you started with nothing, and then you built it up. Now, let's have a little look at this guy. So, as we can see here, that doesn't look too bad. It's a little wet, but, you know, that's alright. That is alright. There we go. Now, that's only one coat. And if we look at our little comparison here, so this one looks a lot darker than this one. And even if I just swap hands for shadows and what have you, there you go. So again, this one looks darker, this one looks lighter. So try and get the light. As I said, folks, in the last video, I'm doing this from a kitchen table, dining table, whatever you want to call it. You know, I don't have those fancy overhead circular lights. Don't have anything to spice it up. It's just me, my phone, and this kit. Okay, because that's what I want for you guys. You know, I want to show you what you can do without splurging. Remember, we just want to find out if this is right for us. And we'll look at the total outcomes and costs. You know, obviously, if you put a bit more money into something, the better it's, you know, well, we'll say the better it's going to come out. That's not necessarily true, but the more you're likely to try new techniques, try new styles, because, you know, no one wants to feel like their money's gone to waste. I sure don't. And, you know, with money does come a rise in some quality, you know, in terms of equipment and paints and brushes and, you know, just generally all round. Oh, see, look, we've missed a bit. That's the thing with miniature painting, is you'll find a bit that you missed and you'll be like, oh damn. But you know, that's alright. It's alright if you miss something, we can always come back to it. It's not going anywhere. Okay, and then we will grab just a little bit more. And we're going to just put this on here. Oh, I don't think I've got any on there. There we go. There we go. I don't know if I can see that very well. Yep, I am putting paint on. I am putting paint on just a little bit though. And that's the good thing about the thin down paint, is you can build. It takes a little longer, but it looks a little bit cleaner. And that's what we're wanting. Okay, just soaking up the last of that paint. Get it into there. And there we go. Okay, let's take another look at this now that we've got our second coat on. I'll just give my brush a little rinse and dry it off a little bit. There you go. So here we go, second coat. Not too bad. I am thoroughly impressed with that. I'm happy with that. You know, I'm very happy with that actually. Now, we didn't put our second coat on the carapace, but to be honest, you know, it's pretty dark as it is. I mean, yeah, we could get rid of some of these plastic lines. In fact, let's see, is there any, is it dried off? No, it hasn't. Okay, great, so let's just pop it on. You know, tidy it up a little bit, give it a smoother look. There you go, just sort of load that up onto there. Get them on the head. I'm sorry, there you go, folks. Got to bear with me, I'll take a bit of practice before I realise that I'm painting for people, not for myself. Although I kind of am painting for myself, but you know what I mean. And there we go. Let's get this side. Give that a bit more vibrancy, a bit more pop. Now, you don't have to stick to the colour schemes. Okay? No, excuse my shaking hands. You can do it however you wish. Okay, if you don't want purple and wraithbone, fine, you don't need purple and wraithbone. Ah, so there's a little, see how we've gone over and we just haven't picked it up, but that's alright. It's alright to make mistakes. We're trying, we're learning. But yeah, you might want to do greens or blues or reds, bright oranges. You may even want to just do purple and vary the gradient, so you can get like to light pinks to deep purples. You know, do sort of a monocolour sort of creature of your choice. Now, that looks pretty good. I am thoroughly impressed with that. So let's pop this away. And now, let's move on to our contrast. Now, the thing with a contrast is that you don't necessarily need to thin it down anymore. I should have another cup of another mouthful of tea. Sorry if you can pick it up, if you hear it on the microphone there. Probably not the nicest of sounds, but being British, I'm fueled by tea. Okay, there we go. So with contrast, it's already really thinned down. Okay, this is supposed to just sit in crevices. It's supposed to make sure that it just gets to those finer little details or areas, you know, shadowy sort of spaces to either highlight or darken. So we're not going to thin this down, but what we are going to do is just apply directly to it. Now, let's pop in that little bit there, that little bit there, and there. And we're going to do the tongue as well, actually, because we can. And this is a great example of how it's just going to mould around these spaces now. if you also notice, we're still using the same brush. We're still using the one that came in the box. And we are doing pretty good. We are doing fantastic. Just take some of that off. And then we're going to use what's left to just spread it around a little bit. There you go. You can see how that just sort of highlights the areas. And if you go outside the lines a little bit, that's fine. Just a little glow. Just a little glow. We can pick up some of that from the tongue. And what I do love about this is see how it's already started pulling around the teeth, so away from those edges. So now our teeth become a bit more sort of defined. And then we're going to sort of do it on this side, in the eye, just here. And I'm going to just grab a little bit more and just drop that in there, and in there. A bit more in the eye. Now, so what we also notice, what I'm noticing, is that the side that has the more thinned down paint has a lot more definition going on. So maybe that's the key, isn't it? You know, 1, 2 good coats, 3 coats of very watered down paint. If anything, you could consider that the watered down paint acts very much like a contrast itself, which is cool. And is really, really handy. So Matt's just painting with contrast, really. And then you're going to get into the whole argument of well, speed paints versus contrast paints. And you know, if you want to dabble in everything, go ahead. You know, maybe you just like the Citadel stuff. Maybe you like Army Speed Painter, Vallejo, Green Stuff World, I think is the other one. Or just, you know, there's loads of brands that I probably even haven't heard of or imagined. And the cool thing is, you find what works for you. Okay, you might be very heavy-handed, so you need thinner paint to help it out, or you could be very, very delicate and you use thicker paint because that's all you need. Now I'm just going to try and, I don't know if you can see, you probably can't see it at all. Just getting there. Little bits and pieces there. And I'm just going to touch up the eye a little bit. Just there. And the good thing with this is it's already drying very quickly. So you can quickly go back and retouch up on whatever it is you've done. Yeah, gotta get this side as well. See, this is what happens when we miss things. Oh, that's gone everywhere. That's alright. It's alright. Bit of a glowy effect. And then we're just gonna take the tiniest little bit, come back to the tongue, darken that up a little bit more on that side. And again on that side. Excellent. And just touch that eye up. And there we go. That is our second model painted. And it wouldn't be complete without the base coat. So we can see what it looks like. But here's just a little look-see. And it doesn't look too bad, folks. It really, really doesn't. Actually looks really good. Okay, so all those little highlights, little colours. 2 thin coats. You know, kind of getting it. And then if we do a little comparison, you can sort of see the difference. So, especially in the face, you know, this looks thicker and clumpier. This one looks thinner. and it just sort of contrasts itself very well. Like this one looks a little bit darker actually than this one. And there you go. Get that into there. So there you go. All very, very different. And all that is just a thinning of the paint. So last thing as we do this is our technical. I wonder what would happen if we thinned this down. Let's find out, shall we? Now. Ah yes, it's all sand and gritty and lovely stuff. So let's just use the end of our brush to scoop out a little bit. Try and get that onto the parchment paper. And get just a little bit more. Okay, here we go. And just going to rinse that off. Now, I'm currently receiving a phone call. I wonder if that's going to come up on the screen. I'm just going to get rid of that for the time being. We'll find out. That's alright. It's only my grandma, and she loves me. So, let's add some water to this. Now, let's bring a bit more to the table. In fact, it's not picking up any water. Do you know what? Let's just do this. Just use our hands. There you go. Perfect. You know, if in doubt, stick your fingers in it. No, don't, because that can be dangerous. Alright, let's oh, okay, that's reacting a little differently than I expected. Let's see what it looks like on the model. Okay, so it kind of pulls away, thins out. So let's get a bit more in. So I don't think this is designed to be thinned. Too much or at all. Yeah, definitely not really designed to be thinned. Okay, well let's just pick it up, put it on, and see how we do from here. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Shaky hands. There we go. Oh, that's not too bad. There you go. You'd never know. Okay, there we go, folks. That's our second model. All done and dusted for you. There we go. 2 down, 1 to go. So in the next one we will look to try and base coat. Now I might do a base coat with just this brush. Okay? And by that I mean we're going to take the white and we are going to dry brush over it. Okay, or we will use a primer, but I will decide for the next video. Thanks very much for following along. Maybe you've been painting with me, and you're enjoying this so far, and we will continue with whatever we like. And if there's a series you want to take a look at, you know, what comes in the box sort of thing, or just what it looks like, what we can do with our first amount, then just leave a comment and we'll see what we can do for you, okay? You take care, folks. Bye.